The Galactic Council's message arrived at 0700 hours, an official transmission from Helios Prime, the heart of the alien alliance that had ruled this sector of the galaxy for millennia. It was brief, formal, and dripped with condescension. The Terran Empire is ordered to cease all military expansion, disband its fleet, and submit to Council authority. Non-compliance will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. You have 48 standard hours to comply. Admiral Elise Rowan read the ultimatum twice, then leaned back in her chair. The bridge of the TIS Indomitable, her command ship, was silent except for the soft hum of active consoles. Officers around her exchanged glances. No one looked surprised. No one looked afraid. Rowan exhaled through her nose, tapping the datapad against her palm. Immediate and overwhelming force, she mused. From them. A chuckle from her second-in-command, Captain Aaron Dorn. Sounds serious, ma'am. Does it? Rowan tossed the datapad onto the table. Because I think it sounds like a bluff. Murmurs of agreement rippled across the war room. The Galactic Council had never fought a true war. They relied on their vast numbers, ancient treaties, and the sheer inertia of their dominance. Humanity had been dismissed as a primitive, noisy upstart for decades, until it became clear that those primitives could outmaneuver, outthink, and outfight every major power in the Council's ranks. The Council wasn't issuing a warning. It was begging for submission. Rowan stood, hands clasped behind her back, her sharp eyes scanning the gathered officers. Status report on our deployment. Colonel Vasquez, Ground Forces Commander, leaned forward. All 10 battle groups are in position. Stealth fleets are already deep in Council territory, awaiting final orders. Good. Fleet status? Vice Admiral Luthian, head of naval operations, gave a predatory grin. We have 600 warships mobilized. Fighters and boarding craft prepped. Targeting solutions already mapped for primary and secondary strike zones. And the prototype? Rowan asked. A pause. Then, from the engineering division, Commander Eli Zhang spoke carefully. Fully operational. If we deploy it, we guarantee a decisive first strike. But the Council won't forget that weapon, ma'am. They won't live long enough to care, Vasquez muttered. Rowan allowed herself a small smile. Then we're ready. She tapped the datapad, pulling up the Council's ultimatum one last time. They want an answer? Dorn arched a brow. What should we say? Rowan keyed in a response. The message was simple, direct, and unmistakable. Challenge accepted. Prepare for annihilation. She pressed send. The war had begun. Hours later, the first wave of Terran ships surged through the void, cutting deep into Council space. At the border system of Hadrian 7, Council patrol fleets scrambled in confusion. The Terran Empire had been expected to hesitate, to attempt diplomacy, to delay. Instead, humanity responded with unrelenting force. The Sovereign Wrath, a Terran battleship the size of a city, unleashed a full salvo of kinetic slugs. The projectiles tore through Council dreadnoughts as if they were paper, their outdated shielding useless against hyperdense munitions traveling at near light speed. The first Council armada, once believed to be an impenetrable defense line, collapsed within 15 minutes. On board the Council's command station, panic reigned. Grand Strategist Veruin Tal watched the battle unfold with growing horror. They weren't supposed to attack, he muttered, voice barely above a whisper. They were supposed to negotiate. A junior officer turned to him, frantic. Orders, sir? Veruin swallowed. Send distress signals. We need reinforcements now. Across the sector, similar reports flooded in. Humanity was not merely retaliating, it was advancing. Deep in the war room of the Indomitable, Admiral Rowan studied the latest reports. Every fleet movement was accounted for. Every major resistance point was predicted and already being dismantled. The war was moving faster than expected. We've cracked the border, Luthian reported. Their communications are in chaos. They weren't prepared for this. Rowan nodded. She had no interest in drawn-out battles. Humanity had the advantage now, and she intended to press it. Next target? Luthien's expression darkened. Helios Prime itself is still heavily defended. But if we cripple their supply lines, they won't be able to reinforce it in time. Rowan traced a path on the holomap, eyes narrowing. Then we hit their fuel depots next. If they can't move, they can't fight. Vasquez grinned. You want to starve them before you kill them? Rowan met his gaze. I want them to realize they were dead the moment they sent that ultimatum. At the Galactic Council headquarters, High Chancellor Vrk Toruin watched the war unfold with growing disbelief. The Council had ruled for thousands of years. No species had ever dared to challenge its authority like this. No species had ever won against it. But the humans weren't just winning. They were erasing everything the Council had thought unshakable. An aide rushed in, pale and shaking. Chancellor, we've lost 5 systems already. Terran forces are advancing on. I can see that. The RAK snapped. His claws dug into the table. Summon the War Council. But sir, if the Terrans... Now. The aide fled. The RAK stared at the battlefield projections, watching fleet after fleet fall to the humans' brutal efficiency. This was not the response the Council had expected. This was not the reaction of a species that feared its place in the universe. This was vengeance. And it had only just begun. The first explosions over the city world of Kavaros Prime lit up the skies like a cruel sunrise. Terran strike groups, invisible until the last second, emerged from subspace and launched precision orbital bombardments. Defense platforms tried to react, but human weapons were already slicing through them, their supercooled kinetic rounds leaving molten craters where sleek towers once stood. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Elise Rowan watched the devastation with clinical focus. The Council's most fortified border city, now collapsing in minutes. The feeds streamed in from orbital drones, Council ships disintegrating, their emergency flares flickering uselessly against the void. Captain Dorn broke the silence. They're folding faster than projections. Rowan nodded once. They were never prepared for warfare against us. Only intimidation. Comms chimed. Incoming from Rear Admiral Kessler, ma'am. Strike Group Omega has secured Hadrian fuel reserves. Rowan leaned forward. And? A voice crackled over the bridge speakers. No survivors. Rowan closed her eyes for half a second. Not out of regret. Out of calculation. No supply meant no movement. That was the point. Move the fleet forward, she ordered. Next target, Helios Supply Corridor. Dorn nodded. On course. Rowan stood, stepping to the main holotable. Council forces were collapsing like dominoes. Entire fleets routed, officers surrendering or fleeing into deep space. But the real battle lay ahead, Helios Prime. And VRAK would not run. Across the stars, in the Council's high war chamber, chaos reigned. Advisors shouted over one another. Holograms displayed wave after wave of human assaults, blitz tactics the Council had no defense against. Council Command had expected formality, diplomacy, threats traded across long distances. They had not anticipated silent, calculated annihilation. VRAK pounded the table. Enough! His voice echoed, silencing the room. General Orzelli stepped forward, her crest flattened in defeat. Chancellor, the border has fallen. Kavaros is burning. Terran fleets are bypassing every known choke point. They're not fighting, they're executing. VRAK glared at her. Summon all available fleets. Deploy the inner guard. Lock down Helios Prime. We need more time. Another advisor whispered. We don't have it. VRAK's tone left no room for argument. Indomitable's forward screens pulsed with targeting data. The next strike would cut the spinal cord of Council logistics. The Helios Corridor, a network of orbital supply stations and automated shipyards, stretched like arteries across 3 systems. Disrupting it meant isolating Helios Prime entirely. Admiral, Luthien called out, his tone sharper than usual. Long-range scans show heavy fleet activity near Station Argos. Council reinforcements converging. Rowan allowed herself a small smile. Finally, they were trying. Perfect. The command deck fell silent as orders rolled out. All squadrons, adjust course. Priority, Argos Station. The Terran fleet shifted in disciplined unison. Sleek destroyers flanked by carriers, cruisers holding steady in layered formations. In silence, humanity's fury approached its next target. At Argos Station, the Council's last real hope took form. Over 60 ships, gathered hastily, tried to block the advancing Terran assault. Orbital mines shimmered in high orbit, energy barriers flickering into place. Admiral Travac of the Council fleet spoke into the open channel. His voice carried forced calm. Terran fleet, identify yourselves. State your purpose. The reply came without hesitation. Admiral Rowan's voice. You know exactly who we are. And you know why we're here. Travac swallowed hard. His fleet might have been larger on paper, but numbers were irrelevant when your doctrine was outdated. They're not slowing, his tactical officer whispered. No. They wouldn't. He gave the order. Fire at will. From the observation deck of Indomitable, Rowan watched Council ships light up like fireflies in a storm. Human formations never broke rhythm. Missile salvos carved glowing trails through space, flares detonating against scrambling interceptors. Council ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but the humans anticipated them. Predictive targeting AI meant every dodge was already accounted for, every retreat turned into a trap. Council flagships disabled, Luthien reported coldly. Secondary defense line collapsing. Ground installations? Rowan asked. Destroyed. Rowan nodded. Sweep the debris field. Ensure no escape pods make it out. There was no cruelty in the order. Only finality. No survivors meant no warnings sent to Helios Prime. Surprise was their weapon. Inside Argos Station's command center, alarms blared as power systems overloaded. Admiral Travac knew it was over. The last functional readouts showed his fleet scattered, communications jammed. A young officer wept at his console. Travac placed a hand on his shoulder. Son, it's not your failure. He turned to the holofeed. The Terran flagship loomed larger than any Council vessel. Graceful in design, but monstrous in scale. He opened a final channel. Admiral Rowan. Her face appeared calm and impassive. You've made your point. Travac rasped. End it. Rowan's gaze never softened. This is the end. The line cut. Seconds later, the core detonated. Argos Station became a cloud of molten debris. On the bridge of Indomitable, silence held for a moment. Rowan finally spoke. Status? All targets eliminated. No transmissions escaped. She exhaled slowly. Good. Begin approach to Helios Prime. Prepare for siege. Doran spoke softly. They'll know we're coming now. Rowan nodded once. Let them. On Helios Prime, Chancellor Vrak watched in horror as reports stopped mid-transmission. No updates. No survivors. His command center fell into grim silence. One advisor dared to speak. They've wiped out the Argos defense line. Vrak turned toward the vast window, staring out into the stars. Somewhere out there, the Terrans were coming. He clenched his claws. Then we make our stand. Helios Prime spun beneath them, a shining beacon of power, culture, and pride for the Galactic Council. Its orbital defense grid was vast and layered, hundreds of warships stationed in perfect formation. Space stations bristled with weapon arrays, mines glistened in strategic clusters, and ground-based anti-orbital cannons glowed like sleeping giants. Admiral Rowan stood silently on the Indomitable's bridge, studying the holographic projection of the enemy's last fortress. No more ambushes. No more surprise attacks. This was confrontation at its purest. Final scans? She asked. Luthien's voice was low but steady. 72 capital ships, 250 support vessels, planetary shield at full capacity, 28 orbital batteries operational. Dorn exhaled. Their last stand. Rowan nodded. Ours too. She pressed the control on the console. Fleet-wide transmission. The bridge hushed as her voice echoed across every human vessel. Terran fleet, the Council believed they could threaten our worlds and dictate our fate. They thought us weak, easily contained. Today, we show them what it means to awaken a sleeping world. Today, we finish this. She closed the channel. Begin. The void came alive. Human dreadnoughts surged forward, carriers deploying wings of sleek strike craft. Swarms of bombers and interceptors streaked toward the first line of orbital defenses. The Council fleet opened fire with disciplined precision. Energy beams slashed across space, and nuclear flares blossomed like silent suns. But the Terrans didn't slow. Inside the lead Council flagship, the Valoris, Chancellor Vrk stood on the command deck, flanked by his military council. His scales shimmered under the soft blue glow of tactical displays, but his expression was iron. Target their carriers first, he commanded. Disrupt their coordination. Fleet Admiral Solrix, tall and scarred from past campaigns, responded quickly. Already issuing orders. As Vrk watched the Terran formations approach, he realized something unnerving. Their assault was not reckless or desperate. It was orchestrated, measured. Their movements anticipated the Council's every reaction. Adapt. No, he growled. They're baiting us. Too late. Terran ships feigned a retreat along the right flank, drawing half of the Council's interceptors into pursuit. Hidden missile pods deployed from stealth frigates behind the bait line, sending volleys of magnetically accelerated projectiles into the interceptors. Dozens of Council ships evaporated before they could adjust course. The Council fleet scrambled to reform, but the damage was done. On the Indomitable, Rowan watched with unwavering calm. Execute Phase 2. The Terran fleet split into 3 prongs. One advanced head-on toward the heaviest Council warships, drawing their fire. The second group looped high, engaging orbital batteries from above, where their firing angles were weakest. The third dropped low, hugging the planet's gravity well and approaching the shield generators from below the Council's standard targeting zones. Council warships fired in all directions. But every response felt reactive, sluggish. Terran tactics were fluid, built on hundreds of simulations, and executed without hesitation. On Helios Prime's surface, sirens howled through golden cities. Civil defense bunkers filled with terrified citizens, most watching broadcast feeds in stunned silence as their invincible armada faltered. In the war room, Vrk clenched his claws. Divert power to the planetary shield. Prepare for surface impact contingencies. Solrix's jaw tightened. If they break the shield. They won't. Vrk's voice was stone. But doubt lingered in his eyes. Above them, the battle intensified. Council capital ships collided with human dreadnoughts in close-range duels. Hulls buckled, decks ruptured, and entire cruisers detonated as reactor cores breached. But the humans kept pressing forward, refusing to fall back. Inside one of the forward Terran assault ships, Commander Hayes locked eyes with his tactical officer. We're inside the perimeter. Deploy shock troops. From orbit, drop pods roared through the atmosphere, piercing the planetary shield in carefully calculated micro-windows between power cycles. Thousands of armored Terran soldiers landed on Helios Prime's surface, storming key military installations. Explosions bloomed across the city skylines. In the Council Command Center, alarms blared. Ground feeds flickered with chaos. Defense forces fought bravely, but the precision of the Terran strike was overwhelming. They're inside our command perimeter! A panicked officer shouted. Vrk's fist shook. Reroute ground troops. Deploy the honor guard. In the war-torn streets of Helios Prime's capital, Terran forces advanced block by block. Plasma fire lit the night sky, and towering statues of council leaders crumbled under explosive charges. Commander Hayes led his unit through the shattered gates of the planetary defense complex. Clear the next sector, he ordered, voice sharp through the comms. A squad of council soldiers attempted to regroup near the main tower. Hayes fired a burst from his rifle, dropping 2 instantly. Another soldier raised his weapon, only to be tackled by a Terran exosuit trooper and crushed beneath hydraulic strength. As smoke filled the corridors, Hayes' calm buzzed. "Commander, this is Bravo Squad. Shield core secured." Hayes allowed himself the first smile of the night. "Transmit detonation codes to Fleet Command." Seconds later, from orbit, a Terran missile lanced through the upper atmosphere. It struck the planetary shield's control tower. The generator flared and died, leaving Helios Prime naked. On the Indomitable, silence reigned for one heartbeat. Then Rowan spoke, soft but absolute. "All batteries, fire!" The void turned white. Kinetic strikes rained down on the exposed cities. Council ground defenses tried to respond, but human precision bombardments shattered their lines. Helios Prime burned in silence, flame storms rolling across its surface. In the council war room, dust shook loose from the ceiling. Vrak stared at the main display, watching his world fall apart. Solrix turned to him. "We must evacuate." Vrak shook his head. "No. This is where it ends." Outside, the last council battlecruiser disintegrated under Terran fire. On the Indomitable, Rowan sat down, finally allowing herself a slow breath. "Status?" Luthien answered without hesitation. "Enemy fleet destroyed. Ground command crumbling. Helios Prime is ours." Rowan closed her eyes. The war was nearly over. But one final message remained. "Prepare transmission to the council chamber," she said. Dorn nodded. "They'll hear it." She stood and spoke the words that would echo across the galaxy. "Challenge accepted. Prepare for annihilation." The throne chamber of the Galactic Council was silent, a suffocating, heavy silence. Holographic feeds blinked with broken signals, Helios Prime's defenses shattered, the Council fleet in ruins, its last transmissions desperate cries swallowed by static. Chancellor Vrak sat rigid on the grand dais, the weight of humiliation heavier than his ornate mantle. Around him, representatives from 100 star systems stared in disbelief. Some were too stunned to speak. Others whispered in hushed, fearful tones. The Terran Empire, once dismissed as a primitive anomaly, had broken the Council's most sacred stronghold. An urgent chime cut through the silence. "An incoming transmission," the chamber steward announced. His voice trembled. "Terran origin." Every delegate turned. "Put it through," Vrak ordered, his voice brittle steel. The great display at the chamber's center shimmered to life. Admiral Rowan appeared, standing tall in her immaculate black uniform. Her expression was calm, eyes cold with the weight of retribution. "This is Admiral Rowan of the Terran Empire," she began. Her tone was measured, but the undercurrent was unyielding. "We warned you. You invaded our space, threatened our people, and delivered ultimatums as if we were subjects beneath you." The chamber stirred uneasily. Rowan continued. "You believed we would kneel. Instead, we built. We prepared. We endured. Today, Helios Prime lies broken, not because we desired conquest, but because you forced our hand. This war could have been avoided." She leaned slightly forward. The effect was intimate and terrifying. "From this moment, the Terran Empire no longer recognizes the authority of this council. Your decrees are ashes. Any world that raises arms against humanity will meet the same fate as Helios Prime. We do not seek your destruction, but we will not hesitate to deliver it." Her eyes narrowed. "Challenge us again, and you will be forgotten by history." The transmission ended. The chamber was left in stunned silence. Finally, Delegate Sovi of the Iridian cluster spoke. Her voice shook. "What do we do now?" Vrak's fists clenched. He had ruled with power and fear for decades. Now both crumbled beneath him. "We must retaliate," hissed High Commander Aurak, a battle-scarred general known for his ruthlessness. "They cannot be allowed to dictate terms." Vrak knew the truth. Retaliation was impossible. Their fleets were scattered, ground forces decimated, key worlds exposed. Helios Prime's fall was more than a defeat, it was a symbol. Fear would ripple through every colony and protectorate. Already, lesser worlds would question their loyalty. He rose slowly, dignity forced into each motion. "There will be no retaliation," he said. His voice was low but final. Gasps rippled through the chamber. "We have underestimated them. Humanity is not a pest to swat aside. They are something else." Delegate Marin of the Veltac Confederacy snarled. "If we show weakness now, the Council falls apart." "It has already fallen apart," the RAK replied quietly. He turned to his inner circle. "Prepare envoys. We will negotiate." Auroch spat on the floor. "I will not beg." The RAK's gaze turned icy. "Then you will vanish alongside your pride." Across the void, on the Indomitable, Admiral Rowan stood on the observation deck. Below, Helios Prime's fires glimmered like dying embers. Her comms chirped. "Admiral," Luthien's voice came through. "We've received Council acknowledgement. They are requesting terms." Rowan exhaled, tension easing slightly. "Bring it up." A shimmering hologram appeared, Vrak himself. His scales were dulled, his posture less proud than before, but there was still a glint of steel in his eyes. "We concede," Vrak said. He forced the words out as if they burned. "Helios Prime is yours. The Council recognizes the sovereignty of the Terran Empire." Rowan met his gaze without flinching. "We will withdraw from Helios Prime's surface within 48 hours. In return, you will disband all offensive fleets and rescind every edict against humanity." Vrak hesitated. The weight of submission hung heavy in the air. But there was no alternative. "Agreed," he said bitterly. Rowan didn't gloat. There was nothing to celebrate. The price of victory was measured in blood and ruin. "I hope this is the last time we speak under such circumstances, Chancellor," she said. Vrak's eyes darkened. "I hope we never speak again." The transmission ended. Dorn approached quietly. "It's over." Rowan shook her head. "Nothing is ever over. But for now, humanity breathes free." Down on the devastated streets of Helios Prime, Commander Hayes stood with his troops amid the wreckage. "Orders, sir?" his sergeant asked. Hayes looked around. The monuments that once towered over this world now lay shattered. Civilians emerged from shelters, dazed and afraid. He felt no triumph. "Just wait. We begin evacuation prep," he said. "We came to end a threat, not to conquer." The sergeant nodded. Later that night, on the Indomitable's observation deck, Rowan watched the planet slowly turn. Luthien joined her. "What if they rebuild and come for us again?" Rowan's expression was thoughtful. "Then they'll find we've rebuilt twice as strong." She turned away from the viewport. "Let them remember this day," she said softly. "Not for their defeat, but for humanity's resolve." Across the stars, news of Helios Prime's fall spread like wildfire. Worlds whispered of Earth's rise. The species once dismissed as a backwater anomaly had rewritten the galactic order. On distant colonies, human settlers lifted their heads a little higher. On far-flung outposts, old rivalries faded as stories of the Indomitable's campaign reached them. Humanity was no longer a footnote in galactic history. It was a headline. And somewhere in the endless dark, Admiral Rowan whispered to herself, "We were never prey. We were always the storm."